I am as God created me. A Course in Miracles Workbook Lesson 110. Welcome as we let go of anything that stands in the way of the truth of these ideas, as we practice holding these ideas in place of the idols which we used to carry. I am as God created me, that the Christ is in you. The Christ is in your brother. You can suffer nothing. You are the Son of God. And notice as we go through and practice this idea, I am as God created me, as we allow it to work upon us, that all the fear and evil and misery and death becomes replaced with the truth, your salvation and the salvation of the world. You need no thought, but just this one thought. I am as God created me, allowing all other idols you've placed on the altar of your mind before God creating you as his son to fall away. Let this idea not be replaced by anything, though if you have any thoughts, anything you are placing before this idea, that's okay. We don't need A Course in Miracles workbook if there's nothing to let go of. So could you allow yourself to just look at anything you're putting on your altar other than your perfect sonship, being the Christ in you? Anything that comes up that where you would replace your brother as Christ with some other sick fantasy of their wrongness, their evilness, their badness. Could you allow these things just to come to your witnessing, come to your light? Let the darkness come up and allow it to be enlightened with the presence of God, the presence of Christ within you. Let's begin. Lesson 110. I am as God created me. I am as God created me. His Son can suffer nothing, and I am his Son. Could you allow that idea upon the holy altar of your mind? I am as God created me. His Son can suffer nothing, and I am his Son. Could you open to this? I am as God created me. His Son can suffer nothing, and I am his Son. And if there's any appearances which come before your altar that would distract you from your perfection as God created you, any transitory thoughts of a world to be feared, attacked, or some unworthiness, that's okay. Could you notice if there's any resistance coming up to you being God's Son, to the Christ in you? Could you allow up that darkness so it can come to light out of the shadows and crevices? Could you simply open up and bring any resistance to the Christ in you? You being as God created you, you his Son. Could you allow it up to be dissolved? And could you allow it to fall away and be enlightened? Could you let it go? Would you let go of any resistance to the Christ in you, your holy being? When could you let go of some false idol? I am as God created me. His Son can suffer nothing, and I am His Son. Will you allow this truth for yourself? You are His Son, the Christ in you. I am as God created me. You are as God created you. And should there be any doubt or disagreement with this idea, that's okay. Could you notice what comes up for you and how that feels? Just some darkness, some error, some ignorance. Could you acknowledge and allow up any resistance to the Christ in you, any resistance to being God's Son? Could you bring it to Him? Could you bring it to the Christ in you? Just noticing, acknowledging, allowing up whatever's coming up. And could you release? Would you release the resistance to the Christ being in you, being at one? When could you release and be as God created you, His Son? You release all the false ideas and idols that you picked up in your innocence, and you will be as you were created, His Son, the Christ in you. You are as God created you. You will discover as you release, let go of any simple error, cloud of darkness. I am as God created me. His Son can suffer nothing, and I am His Son. You are as God created you. His Son can suffer nothing, and you are His Son. Would you allow this idea, this thought on the holy altar of your mind? And is there anything which would distract you, cloud your vision of this truth, of your being God's Son, as God created you? Could you allow yourself to notice any resistance, any ignorance, any illusion of otherwise? Just to notice it and bring it to light. Could you feel any feeling behind any thoughts of you being other than as God created you, His Son, the Christ? Allowing any of that resistance up, whatever it feels like, behind any thoughts, to open up and allow up what isn't even true, so that it may dissolve. Just feeling whatever it feels like, any sense of being other than God's Son, the Christ, created as you are. And could you surrender any resistance to being as God created you, His Son, the Christ, here in you? Would you surrender, turn over what you are not to be what you are? When could you surrender any false idols you've made of yourself and be at one, God's Son, Christ in you? You are as God created you. You are as God created you. His Son can suffer nothing, and you are His Son. You are as God created you. His Son can suffer nothing, and you are His Son. The Christ in you, the Son of God, brother to the world, the Savior. You have the power to save whoever touches Him. You are as God created you. Could you honor yourself today? Deep in you, the Holy Christ, waiting your acknowledgement as you. Could you acknowledge the Christ in you today? Seek Him, find Him. You allow yourself to be as God created you, holy light in the world. You are as God created you. You are His Son. Could you allow that today?